understand like how Muslims believe that they can overcome sin, like how we believe we can overcome sin through Jesus Christ and his blood on the cross, how they believe they can overcome sin, and if they are even motivated to, and where that power comes from.
Very good question, a very incisive one. I think your insight may be keener than you realize here, because of all the major issues that I find between Islam and Christianity, there's a lot in common. But I think the biggest factor, theologically speaking, that separates Islam from Christianity is that nature of sin. I think that's the one thing, and people don't realize it. We say the word sin, they say the word sin, and we think we mean the same thing. We don't. Because as Christians, when we speak about sin, we're talking about something we can never overcome by ourselves, just like you've intimated. We're talking about something that's so damaging, so devastating, that it pervades and permeates every aspect of our being and our world, and it turns our world from the Garden of Eden into planes falling out of the sky in Syria in crisis and Palestine and Israel. I mean, that's what sin does. From living in communion, walking with God in the garden, to serial rapists and murderers. That's how bad sin is. In the Christian notion, we've kind of embodied that to the point where we cannot resolve sin. Whereas the Islamic notion of sin, and I know if I say this to a Muslim, they'll immediately have a knee-jerk response, but hear me out. The Islamic notion of sin is not that bad. It's not. Sin is something you overcome by doing your good deeds. It's like a counter. You have a counter of good deeds, you have a counter of bad deeds. And sure, certain of those bad deeds are worse, like murder is worse than, jaywalking or whatever. So some are worse than others, but they're still counters. They're not cancer, which is what sin is in the Christian worldview. So how do Muslims say they can overcome sin? Well, generally speaking, through doing good works. God, of course, has an element of grace in the Islamic worldview as well, but that's still through a works-based paradigm. God can overlook some of your bad deeds and multiply some of your good deeds, and that's how God shows grace in the Islamic paradigm. But this difference in the way we see sin is, I think, the core of the issue.